right, so we are on episode 2 of our podcast. We actually survived the first time.
How exciting. People liked us enough to want us to come back and do this again.
Or not kick us off the internet.
Not kick us off the internet. Whatever it is, we're back here. We're doing this again. This is number 2. Thanks for joining us.
So what's going on with your real estate this week? We've seen an uptick.
We have seen a bit of an uptick in the market. Our showings.
Isn't it interesting?
Our showings definitely did a little bit of a pop up, which was good. We had a couple quiet weeks, and now we've seen our showings pop up, which is a good thing to note.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of my buyers are starting to come out of the woodworks, looking for the spring, and then talking about what the opportunities are right now in this market. I mean, it's.
Look at you! You're jumping ahead on some of these questions
already.
No,
I'm really sorry about that.
No, not at all.
I mean, we put Jacob under contract, and we had a couple clients coming in from out of town. I love that people are moving back to Chicago. I think that's the most amazing thing. I mean, obviously we always want to be advocates of our city. Yeah,
and you and I, we love the energy that our clients bring to us, right? The pulse of the city, the pulse and the energy of our clients. And anytime we see an uptick, I just notice it in us, right? We're just more excited about what's happening.
So that being said, do you want to just jump in?
Let's get started. So a couple of quick reminders and disclosures. We always have to start with this. First and foremost, Amanda McMillan, Samuel Ciochon.
Samuel.
We are experts and advisors in Chicago real estate. Yes. Not suburbs, not Kentucky, not California, not anywhere else. We are talking about Chicago real estate, downtown urban neighborhoods. That's what we are advising on now.
Yeah.
Also, our goal in this is to put information out there.
Yeah.
There's no agenda, right? We're here to just put the information out there so that our clients that are watching, other people can make smart decisions for themselves. We're not trying to spin the data. We're not trying to convince anybody to buy or sell that's not interested in it. We are literally just here to kind of put some words out there and then let those people digest them the way they want to.
You mean we're here to talk?
We're here to talk.
And we like listening to ourselves. That's the easiest thing.
Samuel likes to listen to himself, so let's get started on that front. Thanks to everybody that put questions out there over the past 30 days.
And keep them coming in. They're really good questions.
Yeah, we're seeing great stuff out of there. So I'm going to dive in. The first question we have is a little bit of a repeat from last session, but it's a really important one now. So we figured since it was coming back in, we had to address it again, maybe with a little bit of a different spin.
Totally.
Okay.
Let's go into it. All right. Do you want to read it or do you want me?
You take it.
All right. So there's so much negativity in the media regarding the real estate market right now. Should we be concerned?
Okay. The media. I'm going to take this one. You
let
me take it. I'll let you jump in at some point. The media is very good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
They need to capture interest, right? In our minds, we think the media needs to basically tell the story and put the information out there, but realistically, their jobs are to capture interest. Now, it's interesting. I was talking to a client of mine who's actually in advertising and TV production, and she made an interesting comment to me. She goes, Amanda, it's not about capturing interest. It's about selling ad space.
Totally. You want more eyes on your media.
And I thought, what an interesting way to think about it, so that they need consumers to watch, read, listen, because the way that they make money is not by telling the story. They make money by the people that advertise during the stories.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about it that way, they're great at what they do. But we always know that there's some spin in it, and why it's so important right now. What we're seeing out there is so much of a backlash from the media. The media is right, wrong, or indifferent, putting a spin on things, not intentionally to mislead, but to intentionally get their ad dollars.
Totally.
So for example, I read an article last week, Crane Chicago Business.
They have been up and down and everything. Every single headline has been different. So What are they talking about?
The headline was, Chicago homes halved in sales. Very dramatic.
Very dramatic. I did see that article.
Okay, so the thing that I thought was so interesting, that title in itself creates fear in me, right? I'm an advisor and that creates fear in me, so I can only imagine what happens to other people. Now, when you read the article, first and foremost, you're going to realize that I'd say a good 80% of the article references the suburbs. Talks about the suburban Chicagoland, all of those things, but it doesn't necessarily go back to the headline of Chicago. About 2/3 of the way through the article, there is one line or one paragraph on Lincoln Park condos. It says that sales of Lincoln Park condos are down 41%. Now, a normal consumer, when they see negativity towards something, they automatically think price.
Down. Yeah.
They don't necessarily think that's about the number of transactions,
Yes.
not the price. That's their first knee-jerk reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, even if I clarify and say it's about the number of transactions, 41% down seems very drastic. Now, if you keep reading into that article and you go another third down to the very last paragraph, the next thing it's going to say is, oh, by the way, side note, the amount of inventory was down 43%.
Yes.
So,
So essentially, like, supply is matching the demand. So
rather than saying, hey guys, our inventory is down 43%, and therefore our sales are down 41%, that's a way to put the information out there so that we can digest it properly.
Totally.
They just put a little bit of spin on it to create a little bit of emotion in you. Anyway, so it's one of those things that's really, really a big topic for us right now. I know you've been educating your clients a lot on it, but it's important for us to note that we have to digest the media fully, completely, and then reach out to your advisor to figure out what the heck it's trying to say.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that.
You were doing something, I think, with weren't you doing something with the headlines with your clients?
Yeah, so I literally have the headlines all right here of every single article that they've written in the last 2 weeks. And it literally goes, one day is, despite everything, home prices keep growing.
Okay, so positive.
So positive. The next one says, home sales halved in some places as demand chilled.
Okay, the roller coaster
That's the second one.
just dropped.
That's the one that you were talking
Yep.
about. And then the housing market is slowing and sellers are freaking out.
Okay.
That's the next one. And then 2 signs Chicago housing market isn't crumbling as fast as others.
Wow, I got a little seasick just listening to those.
Yeah, and I mean, if you go into those articles, what we're realizing is Chicago's not like the other markets. We are seeing transactions go down, but the big thing is we've had the most amount of sales in the last 2 years.
Sure.
And so naturally, most people move every 7 to 10 years. If a lot of people moved in that last 2 years, they're not moving again.
Absolutely.
So that's why we're seeing a decline in a lot of our transactions.
That's the point that we keep talking about, is that especially when you're reading the news, there's a huge differentiator between the number of sales and prices.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything goes back to supply and demand, right? Basic economics.
Totally.
If the supply is there and the demand is there, that's going to adjust your price. And right now, both of those are going down, but the price is staying relatively the same because the supply is outweighing the demand as well.
So long story short, the media is selling the drama right now, and that it's we ourselves have to keep ourselves off of the emotional roller coasters, and our consumers do as well. And that's where we so much of our days right now are educating our clients on doing this and talking about when people call me freaking out, right? Sellers are freaking out about what they read, so that we can really help conceptualize what's happening out there.
Yeah. So what are you telling your clients, your sellers right now, if they're getting into the market, I guess?
Well, I think that goes back to a lot of the strategy. What are their end games? What are their plans? What are they trying to accomplish, right? This is so much. I think strategy is one of those things that a lot of people in our industry don't spend enough time on. We do a ton of this with our clients. We do a lot of planning, a lot of strategy, because we say, hey, what are your end goals? And then how do we get there? There are some people that want to take advantage of this market if it aligns with their strategies and their goals. And then there's others that are not. So there's different things that are going to be put into play. So it's a hard thing to say, hey, this is the blanket answer of what we're going to say.
Yeah.
But there are absolutely different people that are taking advantage of different things right now, for certain.
So are you doing something differently with your clients as well to set expectations about this market?
100%.
So what are the different expectations you're trying to do?
Well, right now we know, right? There is some truth in what the media is saying, right? They're not lying.
Yeah.
Is that home sales are down, pricing is a little softer. This is things that we always see in Q4. So with that being said, our expectations need to be realistic. It is not typically a time that the majority, not all, but the majority of homes, we're not putting them on the market and having 6 offers within 3 days. Now, that being said, we are listing some stuff that has that reaction. So it's very based on the home product, the location, what it is, but setting a very realistic expectation of what our market experience is going to be and how that then goes back into our plan is something that is very, very important, right?
Yeah.
People only really feel scared if they don't have a level of expectation.
Oh, totally. I think there was an article, I mean, Crane's actually in one of their articles said that 56% of homes sold within the first 2 weeks in September of 2020.
Yep.
And then they relayed it on to 7%.
7%,
are
I read
selling
that one.
within the first 2 weeks now,
Yep.
like in September 2022. So, I mean, like, we have to understand that even 2 weeks is a really fast-paced market.
Absolutely.
And I mean, like, prior to the pandemic, our average days on market was over 80 days. So what we're trying to do is we're coming back to a normalized market.
Right?
I think that's like the
Normal
biggest.
isn't so bad.
Normal isn't bad.
Most economists are predicting some level of a recession. Some are saying we're in one right now. Someone say we're on the brink of it. Whatever the case may be, how will this impact the real estate market?
Yeah. So I think like we talked about last time with like the housing recession, like people are like using that as a buzzword. You know, it is a thing. I think home builders are feeling it in different markets, but obviously Chicago, I don't think we're going through necessarily a housing recession. But the recession is talking about interest rates going up and the other impacts that are going to happen on. And so if you look at like Jay Powell talking about, you know, trying to put a little pain in our markets where, you know, we're going to try and disrupt employment because wage growth is like too much and the amount of jobs that are out there is just too much as well. But I think like that is where we're going to ultimately go. But just because that happens, we are seeing a lot of our consumers having a lot of savings. Obviously from 2020 and 2021, there was a lot of growth and a lot of people saved up a lot of money because that. I think that's also helping the housing market. And we're going to see, you know, the last 9 recessions, we've had 8 of them have growth appreciation in properties.
Yeah. And so many great points in there, Samuel. You know, I think it's a few things. Number one, recession in general is a very scary word.
Yes.
It automatically kind of penetrates and causes fear. That's what we think, a recession.
Yeah,
it's negative.
Unknown.
It's unknown, it's a lowering, it's a balancing. I think the things that we forget about is that oftentimes we are putting these recessions into place to normalize markets.
Yes.
In theory, if our economic markets, housing markets, whatever markets we're talking about, if they perpetually went up, we'd be in a really, really bad spot really quickly. I mean, even we can look back to the housing crisis because we've talked a lot about this. Part of that downturn was so severe because the government got involved prior to that and kept our market from not balancing because of fear of September 11th.
Yeah.
So recessions, I think first and foremost, I think we have to kind of come to terms with the fact that they're not
Always a bad thing.
They're not negative.
Yeah.
Right? They feel negative to us because we look at our specific situation at that current time. And at that moment, it feels negative because, right, my accounts are down.
My accounts
Your
are
accounts
way
are down. Whatever that case may be. And that feels bad. But when we kind of step back and we take a look at it and we say, okay, the markets are down, but our overall market is more stable and healthy, that's long term.
Totally.
That's what we're hedging our bets on, is knowing the long term. So we have to understand that the decisions the government is making with regards to inflation and everything else is helping to calm our financial markets, calm our housing markets and everything like this. This is on purpose. So it feels negative, but it's on purpose. And I think the point that you made that's so great. During these times, people look at real estate as a hard asset. And that's intriguing to a lot of people.
Well, I mean, like if you look at even our markets today, right? Like we've sold way more high-end homes than any other market that we've had in the last like 6 years. And a lot of the reason luxury is
hook.
like blowing up right now. And
Yeah.
the reason is because a lot of those people who have money understand that that is a safe asset and that it makes
Totally.
sense to park your money into real estate instead of into the stock market or being cash heavy or
Yeah.
something like that.
And I want to come back to the other point you made because it's a really, really important one. From the data we have on the last 9 economic recessions,
Yes.
in 8 of those recessions, home values on average went up. There was only one time, one recession in which we saw home values go down, and that was during the...
Housing crisis of 2008.
And the reason that was is that wasn't a straight economic recession. That was a collapse of our mortgage structure. That was a huge financial mess that essentially that caused the recession.
Yeah.
These are recessions, if you look at most recessions, the recession leads the way. That was a housing crisis that turned into a recession and not vice versa.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty strong data point.
Well, that was a depression almost. Like that, I mean, like if you look at what an actual recession is, it's 2 quarters of negative GDP.
Sure.
That was 3 years of recession-ness, which really means it's depression.
Totally.
So like, yes, housing prices dropped.
And we're still here to talk about it.
We're still here, we all survived.
Smarter, wiser, better?
Yeah,
Most of us.
most of us. But I mean, also with that, we learned a lot from that recession was banks don't want to own properties. We want to they just don't want to. They
Right.
lose a lot of money. So they're trying to keep people in their houses as much as possible this time.
So long
Which is
story
what we saw
short,
during
right?
which is what we saw during 2020. They were like, mortgage forbearance.
Right.
Let's extend it.
Yeah, so I mean, long story short, I think essentially we can't predict the future.
We
We've
can't.
tried. But based on, once again, the data and what we've seen in the past and where we're at today, the likelihood of seeing a long-term loss of value
Yeah.
is not. Yes, we may see some temporary, some artificial, some seasonality, some balancing of the market. This isn't the stuff that tends to really last. This is the stuff that we feel every year at the end of the year from that perspective.
Is it true? So next question, is it true there are new mortgage products to assist with the current marketplace?
Oh, that's a good question. Short answer is yes, absolutely. This has kind of been a fun one. I feel like lenders in general, or lending institutions, I should say, have really been trying to jump in. Obviously, we're in extreme circumstances, right? In my 20 years, I've never seen the interest rates more than double in a 12-month period of time.
Not in this short of a time frame.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In a 12-month period of time, our interest rates have essentially more than doubled, and we are expecting them to go up more. First and foremost, the power bid, right?
Yeah, that came out in the spring because it was so competitive, which was really great.
Yeah, so essentially what this is a product that where certain lenders, not everybody, but certain lending institutions would literally approve a client without a property. So typically you can't put in a full application until you have the home, but they were willing to go through the whole process.
Before you get the pre-approval. You
Exactly.
get pre-approved and then you use the pre-approval and you still don't have like everything.
Exactly.
This is literally you're submitting tax returns and bank
You're going through
statements
the
and
whole
everything.
approval process without a property so that a lender can say in good faith, I have vetted your entire file, subject to that property, that appraisal, that condo approval, whatever it is, you are good to go.
So what is the positives about that?
So, as we did say, there are still, in the spring, this is something, and the summer, we use this a lot.
Totally.
This was something in a competitive offer. It gave us the ability to write more compelling offers, to be able to say, hey, either there is a mortgage contingency in there, but it's real short because we only need it for such and such, or we had some clients that were a little bit more risk takers that said, hey, I'm okay writing a cash offer subject to a mortgage to make themselves a little bit stronger. Now, some people might be shaking their heads now and saying, oh, that's a thing of the past. We don't need that anymore. There are still markets out there that are competitive.
We've had like 3 or 4 multiple offers with clients in the last month.
Exactly.
I mean, it's still a fast-paced market.
And next year, we'll talk a little bit about next year, but next year, this is going to be a product that I think, once again, serves us well.
Yeah.
Another one, lock and shop. You have used this a lot with our clients.
I like it. I mean, for me, in an interest rate increasing market, it is a way to kind of lock in and not have a lot of
Okay,
risk.
talk to me like I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
What is lock
Okay.
and shop?
So lock and shop is essentially you lock in a mortgage rate in that moment. So you
Like
lock it
right now.
You lock it right now. It's only some lenders who are doing it right now as well. So just preface. But essentially what you do is you lock in at the interest rate right now for 30, 60, or 90 days. Those are the different products. So if you're looking to purchase in that time frame,
Like if you're in the game.
if you're in the game, do it now.
Yep.
So then if interest rates increase in that time frame, which we've seen,
Yep.
it keeps that interest rate at that lower rate, which is great.
Right.
You do pay a little bit of a premium up front for that lock, but at least you save in the long term. The other great thing about it is if the interest rates do go down, because interest rates have been volatile, you can float down for free one time.
Now, is there any
and
drawbacks
that's
to it? Do you have to pay for it up front or anything like that? Is there
So
any?
you don't pay for it up front. You do pay for it at the closing table. So
Okay.
that's like one of the big things. But it's a little chunk of change. I mean, like $1,000, $2,000, just depending on the product. But
Sure.
you know, it again gets you in at that lower rate, which
So when we've
saves
seen
you a little
interest
bit of
rates
money.
make the jumps that they have, I know we've done this.
Yes.
We've had clients that literally have been able to shave a point off of their interest rate
Yes.
because they put into this program and they got themselves into a better situation just by saying, hey, now what happens, just play this through with me. What happens if you get to the end of your timeline and no property comes up?
So if no property comes up, so let's start with, let's say like you're at day 90 and we need to push it a couple days back. There is a penalty for it.
Okay.
It's a per day.
It's like a rate lock
It's like a
extension.
per diem that you like
Okay.
just push it back. So if it's, hey, I'm at 90 days and we're closing in 95,
Yeah.
don't worry about that. But if you don't find a property and you need to like push it, we can re-extend it and say, hey,
But there's no penalty at the end.
relock at this moment, but there is no penalty, which
Okay.
is like the great thing.
So there's not a lot of downside.
Yeah, there's no downside, which was like the best part of this product,
Yep.
and which is why we pushed it so hard for a lot of our clients, for them to save money.
Totally. The last piece, which I know I think we've got a question right after this that actually concentrates on it, but
Yeah, so the other thing that I did want to mention is that for lower income households,
Yeah.
there are different products that have been around like way before that are now here again.
They're resurfacing back
they're
up.
resurfacing. So like the IDA program, which is a really great program. If you were making under, I mean, back in the day, it was like 65,000.
but now it's
And now-
100 and
No, so that's a different
Oh,
product.
you're talking about different-
Yeah, so the IDA program, they run out of money a lot of the times. A lot of these programs do. So if we know about it, jump on it.
Yeah.
But that's one product. It's like 65,000. It's lower PMIs, like all of that.
Sure.
There are also other banks that are out there that are pitching lower interest rates,
Closing cost
closing
credits.
cost credits. So definitely like talk to us and strategize like what we can do so that you actually are saving.
Awesome. Well, I think the other thing that, as I
then
said, the 2-1 buy down is a really interesting product. We have I think our next question is on it, so we can talk a little bit more about it with
Totally.
that. But I think the really important thing to note with this is that there's a lot of options right now. There's a lot of things going on in the mortgage world that give us the ability to come back to that plan and that strategy. So it's not just like, oops, interest rates are 7% now, that's what we're going to take and that's what we're going to do. Next week we might be saying 8%, whatever the case may be. I think we just have to do a lot more planning when it comes to that because there's some really, really great options out there for right now.
Yeah, and a lot of it is, it's the price of doing business right now. But
Right.
again, we like even talk about this like with past clients. It's a normal interest rate is between 5 to 6%. I think we talked about it last time. So a 7% interest is a little bit of a swing to the right. But at the end of the day, if you look at what a standard interest rate is, it's not that drastic. We're just looking at it from a 3% interest.
Interest rates in general. I think we need to change a little bit the way we think about them, right? And I think that this is, you and I have been talking about this. This is a little bit generational, right?
We're just not used to it.
Our grandparents are people that stuck with whatever they did. They bought a house and they lived in it for 30 years. They went to a job and they worked it for one company for their entire life. Whatever the case may be, it was very permanent. Everything is much more
Transient.
flexible and transient now. That's a great word for it. And the same mindset, this is a perfect opportunity for us to re-examine our thought process on interest rates. Because right now, there's a lot of buyers that are saying, I don't necessarily want to buy a home because I don't want a 7, 8, 9% interest rate. That's scary to me. What if we shift that dynamic? What if we change that conversation and say, okay, right now, we've talked about it, right? The market is a little bit softer right now. Lock in at that interest rate. Buy that home at a little bit of a softer price, because guess what? In the next 1 to 2 years, every economist out there has said interest rates are going to come down. We see it time after time with the presidential elections.
Totally.
And refinance, change that rate. So if you actually go through the numbers with this, and lenders are doing this left and right now, if you actually go through the numbers with this in mind, you're going to do better longer term. So it's better to buy the home at a softer price with a higher interest rate with the mindset that we're going to change it when the timing is appropriate.
Yeah, and again, going back to that standard interest rate, 5 to 6%, if we're at 7 or 8, you know, that refinance in 2 years, that'll save you an extra $400, $500 on a $400,000, $500,000. Yeah, $400,000 to $500,000 house. You're going to save $400 at that time.
I don't own a property that we haven't refinanced on at least once. Some of them we've refinanced on
multiple times,
6, 7 times.
Totally.
For example, so. But no, I think that dialect, that mindset is something that right now especially, we have to get comfortable with, is that our clients that are in the market right now, they get that. They get that because they've been advised on it. But the whole point is understanding that interest rates aren't permanent.
Yep. Right? I 100% agree. They weren't permanent at 3%.
No. Well, and I think we talk about it a lot on the other side. We talk about when people do ARMs and the rate expires, but we don't always talk about the idea of taking a higher rate and bringing it lower. And I think that's the conversation we have to get really comfortable with right now.
Totally.
Okay, that's
so good segue into the 2-1 buy down, because this is like one of those products where you and I both have been scratching our heads being like, what is this? Like, what is the benefit of this? It's literally, so let's explain what is, so the question is, my lender mentioned a program about a 2-1 buy down. What exactly is that, and how does it benefit me as a buyer?
Okay, and you're right. When this program first came out, there was a lot of head scratching going on, because it took a minute to wrap your head around it. And that's why we were so glad when we saw this question come through, because if we're taking a minute to absorb it, everybody's taking at least a minute to absorb it.
Yeah.
This is essentially hedging a bet on the marketplace that rates are going to come down.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
That's the simple version. Let's make it complex now in a simple way.
Yeah. Okay. So who is paying for this 2-1 buy down?
Let's start with what it is before we talk. Okay.
All right. We'll start with what it is. So essentially what it is you are paying a 3% fee up front to pay down 3% of your loan, like of your interest rate.
I'm confused, Samuel. You're confusing me.
So the first year, so it's 3%. The first year of your mortgage, you are buying the interest rate down by 2%. So if interest rates are at 7%, you're paying it to go to 5%. Then the second year, you take it as 1%. So 2 the first year, 1 the third, the second, and that's 3.
Okay.
So the second year, you have a 7% interest rate. It actually goes down to 6%.
Okay.
After that, it goes back to the normal rate of 7%.
At the end of the 2 years.
At the end of the 2 years. So essentially what you're doing is you're paying that 3% to drop the payments down so that you have the monthly cost.
So what are you trying to accomplish?
So that is the fun question, which is why we've been scratching our heads. So you're paying 3% up front to buy down 3% for the next 2 years.
Okay, so I'm bringing down my monthly cost.
Your monthly cost.
Okay.
But you're paid for it up front.
But I'm paying for it. Okay, so that.
So that's where the who is paying for it comes up. So this is a product that a lot of sellers we're talking to entice some of the buyers, is giving them a marketing piece.
Okay.
Totally. So it's for sellers to give this credit to buyers to do this over the next 2 years.
Okay. And the cost of it is 3% of the loan value.
Yeah. So essentially you're paying $1 to reduce it by $1.
But I think the big objective in this, the big point behind it is, okay, I think I'm staying with you now.
Okay.
But I think the big thing to note on this goes back to the interest rates not being permanent. And what we're hedging our bets
Yes.
on is that within the next 1 to 2 years, while we're in this program, that we have the opportunity to refinance at a more palatable number.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
And so this is like where it actually becomes a really interesting product is, so the seller is giving you 3% upfront to cover this buy down. If, again, we're trying to figure out crystal ball where these interest rates are going to be, so you have a 2-year difference. In the second year, because we now have realized that the Federal Reserve wants to keep interest rates a little bit higher for a little longer.
Yep.
So maybe a year that we're going to have this 7%, 8%, 9% interest rate. What that does is the next year, you refinance once
Within
the
that
interest,
term.
yeah. So
Yep.
within that first 2 years, if you refinance because the interest rates go down, you actually can get that credit going towards your towards your principal.
The
balance.
prorated
the
overage.
prorated overage, which that makes it a little bit more interesting
Okay.
and understandable. Otherwise, if interest rates don't go down after 2 years, it is just
You're
a
a
wash.
wash.
It's a
You're a
wash.
wash.
Yeah.
So you're hedging a bet against interest rates, which just about every economist out there has said within the next 12 to 24 months, we'll see something that's a little less inflated and a little bit more reasonable. So it should be a relatively safe bet. Maybe you put a little extra money towards your equity in it.
Yeah.
And once again, it brings down that cost right now immediately.
Immediate, yeah. Which
So-
is like helping some people kind of stomach it.
Okay. And once again, it goes back to that whole thought process on interest rates not being permanent, that we're working with this program to give a little bit more flexibility up front for some people that, the people that are feeling very cost restrictive, right? They're a little nervous that the cost of the home has gotten more. It's going to help them in it with the idea that maybe we put a little bit more towards equity moving forward.
Yeah, and it'll be really interesting to see like what actually happens with the spring because again, that's a closing cost credit. Right now, it makes
We get
sense
away with it.
because we're negotiating a little bit more, but
Yep.
this product may actually be very short-lived in just general.
Right. No, it's and I think the marketing idea came up a little bit when sellers were looking to drop a price.
Totally.
If you offer a credit for this versus dropping a price, you can actually reduce the buyer's monthly cost more. And this is a strategy you and I have been using for a very, very long time in negotiations anyways, a form of it with regards to paying for points and those types of things.
Totally.
This is not a time in which people are going to pay for points just to buy down an interest rate. I don't know any lender that's going to recommend that right now because we already know that interest rates are on the high end. So, okay, interesting. I mean, long story short, it comes back to the fact that
Well, I think it's a win-win for both parties, right? Like the seller
Seller
you don't
sells the
have
house.
you don't have to reduce it by 25,000. You give 15,000, and then you know that saves the buyer $200, $300, $400 a month, and I think
Everybody's happy.
Everyone wins.
let's kind of jump into this. This is an interesting one. Is it true that this type of market provides opportunities for people to take advantage of?
Yes. Yeah, I mean so every year we have this conversation. Is this a seasonal thing or is this like the market, right? And so right now it's a seasonal thing. Q3, Q4 is my favorite time to ever purchase, rent, sell, like move up, move down, like anything that you're trying to do. I always like Q4, it's my favorite time. It's a holiday special, essentially.
You want light clearance in Bucktown.
Yeah. So I mean, the good thing is you're not as it's not as competitive a market as the spring,
Sure.
And so you're not competing with a bunch of other buyers for the same amount of properties.
Yeah.
And so typically it's a little slower. You get a little more negotiations. You can be a little bit more picky.
What do you think the downsides are right now?
But the downside is there's less houses on the market.
Houses.
So the good thing is like the houses that are on the market typically need to sell.
Yep.
Like the people who want to sell during this time frame,
Yep.
they need to sell.
Yeah.
So, take advantage of that. That's what
And
I
that
would
even
say.
goes back to what we just talked about. Buy the house with a higher interest rate, although it may be higher in January, obviously.
Yeah.
Buy the house with a higher interest rate and kind of go on it.
Yep.
Here's a great story. Now this is going to go back 12 months essentially, but we had that listing over on Waveland on the market.
The scary bedroom with the crib.
I thought it was darling.
Yeah, you thought it was darling. It was creepy.
Anyways, we had this lovely 3-bedroom condo by the lake, great unit. The market got quiet at the end of the year. We couldn't give it away. We couldn't get anyone in it. We couldn't do anything. And I remember the sellers had to sell because it was a job relocation. They were moving out of town. We couldn't give it away. We finally kind of pulled it off and put it in the pockets, I think, just for part of December. So just to throw some numbers out there, we couldn't give it away at $485, $475, anything like that. We relaunched the second week of January, right? Spring market is here. It didn't feel like spring, but spring market was there.
It's 2 weeks prior to the spring market.
Technically. But it started early last year.
We
relaunched. We had so much interest. We sold competitively at $500,000. So we couldn't give it away for $475. We sold competitively for $500. We usually pick the strongest offer. We picked the strongest offer that we thought, but the buyer was a little loony. We pulled ourselves out of that offer because it felt a little off. We went back on the market the first week of February. We got another multiple bid.
The actual spring market.
Technical spring market. We got another multiple bid. We went under contract for $535. That was all within the course of a few months and the different market dynamics.
So essentially $60,000.
Wait, hold on. Is your math? Yeah, your math is right.
Yeah, $60,000.
But showing the difference in the market from that perspective, and yeah, I'm sure that buyer looked back and said, hey, this property was on the market in Q4 for this price, and I could have bought it for this price. And heck, at that time, that interest rate would have been a whole lot lower too.
Yeah.
Those are the people that are right now saying, hey, you know, it's not necessarily somebody that is absolutely looking for their unicorn, all right? This probably isn't the market for them. This isn't
because there's not going to be as many properties to choose from.
For certain. But there's definitely, I've got a few of my investors that have kind of started to pop out of the woodworks to say, hey, I've been really quiet in picking up investment properties. They understand the number game of the interest rate. So they're saying, hey, let me get in now for a softer price, knowing that I'm going to bring that, this is a longer term hold for me. I'm going to bring down that rate. The numbers are going to get better. I just need it to make enough sense right now. So I've got investors coming out. You and I always talk about our move-up buyers, especially right now. Like, not everyone has the opportunity to jump in and to buy before selling, but I've got a client right now that their mindset is, if I can buy in the next 2 months, then put my house on the market.
Sell in the spring, buy for a lower, sell for a higher.
This is the one time a year for those that are in the luxurious position to do that. This is the one time a year where you can kind of try and hedge that and work that you're buying a little bit lower and selling a little bit higher. So there's a lot of opportunities right now, especially when we start to bring those mortgage products back in, that make it interesting.
I think a lot of people make really bad decisions in uncertain markets because of fear, but fear is the perfect time. When everyone else is afraid, that's when you make the decisions, and those people are typically the ones that do really well in our markets, like in my experience.
No, very true. And it's usually the people that are a little bit more driven by numbers.
Totally.
And a little bit more sophisticated in that thought process. But these are the things that we're trying to help bring to the attention, right? Most of our consumers are buying homes. It's an emotional purchase. They're buying homes, and that's emotional, and that's fine. That's where we can kind of come in and say, hey, you might be able to get a little bit more bang for your buck right now versus then. You know, I think it's those that are, you said bad decisions. I almost think it's a paralysis.
It is a paralysis.
People get paralyzed to say,
better way to put
I'm
it.
watching this scary movie and I'm going to watch and see what happens next before I literally get in and say, okay, do that. I want to know what's behind the door before I open and go through.
Yeah.
Right? So the paralysis causes a lot of people to miss the opportunity.
Yes.
And I'm sure
that actually reminds me of a very funny story of me doing showings the other night and going up to, the apartment was 3, or the condo was number 3. And so we went all the way up to the 3rd floor, the top floor, and started knocking on the door. And the lady goes, "Who is it?"
Oh no.
And so after it, she was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I couldn't hear you." And so she
creeping.
Yeah, she saw us on the back patio and we were like, "Oh my God, so sorry. We thought it was on the 3rd floor. Maybe it's the 2nd floor." And she was like, "I was watching The Watcher on Netflix and it was Halloween night." It was Halloween night. And so she was like, "Oh my God." I didn't have a ski mask.
Well, that's good. That would have been.
That was
No, but it's true.
Little funny showing story.
Right. Okay. Super.
right.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the kind of the takeaway is that yes, there's opportunities right now for certain. The question is how long is that going to last?
Yeah.
We have a pretty good idea. We're not reinventing the wheel here.
Yeah.
The market might be a little bit different. We're dealing with different things, but we've done this long enough that it doesn't change too much.
Yeah, but I think like even going back to the competition thing, all of our open houses right now are slammed. Like,
Yeah, the open houses have gotten busy.
They're all really busy, and they're all busy with buyers looking for the spring market. So that just like puts it into your mindset. This market is going to be busier come spring, and so do you want to be in that competition, or are you a client who wants to think about it and maybe get a better transaction right now?
Totally, and I think that's a great point. I don't think it's really too, well, maybe one of our questions, but just looking forward to next year, here's what we know. We know that inventory is going to remain tight. We are still dealing with a lot of the things that have caused a tight inventory. In addition, we have a lot of people in loan products that they don't want to give up. That's going to be a new thing, right? Somebody that has a 3% interest rate might say, I'm going to make it work for a little bit while longer, so that isn't going to come on. So I don't think there's any projection that we're seeing within the Chicago area where we're expecting a ton of inventory.
Yeah.
So if all this demand that's a little bit kind of on the sidelines right now steps onto the field with limited inventory, most of our projections are that spring absolutely has the ability to kind of be a little cutthroat and get a little bit competitive again. And I think those are the people that are saying now, like,
Well, I think also if it goes back to a recession, right? Like from our first question, that's going to be a part of the recession conversation.
Sure.
If you have a low interest rate, which a lot of these people do, even if there's layoffs or anything like that, when employment goes down, those people are still saving money on a monthly basis versus going into a rental market or going into the next purchasing market. So it's going to hold our inventory down no matter what.
Yeah, no, I think lower inventory is definitely part of our unforeseeable future.
Yeah, totally.
But once again, that's what gives our confidence in the market not going down the toilet.
Yeah.
Well,
the other thing also that was a really interesting point that, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about affordability in Chicago and how it's so affordable in comparison to every other markets. And we've I think we were in the top 10 of the most affordable markets in comparison to other things where we were at 10% affordability where other markets were at 35 to 40%.
We also didn't see
with
this
those
huge
run-ups.
upswing, right?
Yeah, so I think between that and we also still have steady growth. I don't think we have a ton of people coming in, but I think that's also increasing our demand.
The little engine that could, right?
We are a little
Slow
engine.
and steady wins the race in Chicago.
That is true. All right, this is a fun question.
This is a fun question.
This is not market related, which is kind of fun. What are your favorite quick and cheap remodeling tips to give our homes a fresh look?
No, I love this because, right, we have kind of beaten the idea that renovations are super expensive and super difficult in the last couple of years.
Yes, contractor prices are all up 25 to 30%. It's insane.
Labor shortages, supply chain issues,
everything.
All that stuff has made everything. But absolutely, these are the things that we come in and talk to our clients about a lot. Like, how do we give it a little bit of pizzazz, whether it's going to market or somebody that's buying but doesn't want to spend a lot of money right up front just to give it a new look. I always have to say the one thing that always gets me is paint. Paint. It's the cheapest way, in my opinion, to have huge impact. And we are talking walls. I've seen people painting floors. Cabinets have been a huge thing.
Floors?
Yeah, I saw some wood floors that were painted white, very, very sharp.
Really?
I could never do it with dogs and a kid.
Yeah, no.
Kids and dogs, sorry. I eliminated one of my childhood there. But yeah, paint in general. Now, obviously, if you're getting people to come in and do it, it's going to get more expensive.
Yeah.
But in general, I always think that paint for dollar has the biggest impact on a space, whether you're lightening it, darkening it, creating a new ambiance, cabinetry, just awesome. That's a big thing for me. Little touches in the kitchen, backsplashes. I actually had a couple clients, and I was totally fooled, and I like to think I've got a pretty good eye. There are now these, I'm going to diminish it when I say it, there are these sticker decals that look like subway tile.
Yeah, I've seen those. They're interesting.
They are interesting. I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know if
Yeah.
cooking in a kitchen and stuff like that, but I had a client that was really crafty that kind of put these up on for a backsplash, didn't want to spend the money to put the actual tile up, hire anybody, didn't, you know. There are some pretty easy ways to do it. They were literally stickered up, and it just all of a sudden a little bit of a pop, and I think she said it cost her like less than $100.
Oh my God, that's great.
Cabinet pulls.
I love cabinet pulls.
Cabinet pulls are always a good
I think that
one.
like always gives it a little fresh pop.
Totally, even the
And
style's
change,
a little bit
yeah.
different, the materials are a little bit different. Oh, I know you're big on this. Plants and greenery. I kill them.
I mean,
I can't
it
keep
was
anything alive.
It was my COVID thing. You know, everyone wanted to decorate for Halloween. I live in a condo. Like, I can't. I have to put plants up.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not
did
very
that.
good at keeping the plants alive, but I think that a nice plant in a home is
Yeah.
absolutely changes the aesthetic of it. Light fixtures.
Light fixtures.
Light
yeah,
fixtures are always a good
really
one.
great.
And
The other one that I've like had a lot of clients doing is painting the cabinets.
Yeah,
This year.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that one typically, I recommend that you have that done professionally, but it's still a way less expensive cost than new cabinetry. But that, I think in the last couple of years, especially when we saw the kitchens go white and navy and gray, and I saw a hunter green kitchen the other day that was stunning.
I was going to say, one of my clients just painted theirs sage, and
Oh,
I'm
that's
like
so pretty.
super excited to see it.
No, really pretty. So painted cabinetry, bathrooms, kitchens, I think is great. Mirrors, bathroom mirrors. I've seen a couple do kind of take down that big old.
Oh, the rectangle ones that like take up
With
the
the
whole
clips.
wall.
Yeah, and do something a little bit more decorative. You can go to Home Goods and get a mirror for less than $100.
Yeah.
Put that up instead. You're painting the wall, obviously, before then. And then I had a couple of clients. I'm just so not crafty, but they did some of that, a little bit of that do-it-yourself wallpaper or wall
Oh,
cover.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
you're
yeah.
supposed to call it wall coverings now, right?
Oh yeah.
But those are all the little. As we say, it's the reasons HGTV are popular, right?
Yeah, I mean, we always say a 90s house is always the best house to buy if you like to just do a quick little lipstick fix.
Makeup, not a facelift.
Makeup, yes, makeup, not a
Totally,
facelift.
it's absolutely a couple painted cabinets, maybe a new countertop. Now we're spending a little bit more money, of course, but you can absolutely recreate space for a small budget. Now,
Totally. So then what is so off of that, those
Yeah.
are small fixes. What do you suggest always for your best bang for your buck in terms of getting a return on your investment? I always find these so interesting.
so best bang for your buck, I think hedging towards the smaller investments are always going to be big. You're going to do a big kitchen remodel, you're not going to get all that money back. But if you're going to take an existing kitchen or an existing bathroom and you're going to paint a cabinet, change out
Totally.
a countertop, maybe a faucet and appliances, those, if you can keep your budget more
Lower.
minimum,
Yep.
I mean, it's not going to be cheap to do that stuff. I mean,
Totally.
that's still going to be an investment. But, you know, if you're going to do a $75,000 kitchen remodel versus a $20,000 freshening, that $20,000 freshening is going to give you bang for buck all day long.
Sweet.
What do
Love
you
that.
think?
I always like bathrooms. I think bathrooms are always typically like a really good way to go about it. I
Yeah.
think that's like also where you can kind of put a little bit of design element into it.
Sure.
And design element doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be expensive.
Yeah.
Like just give it a little bit of a kind of a flair. I feel like we've seen a lot of like the standard like new construction.
Yeah.
I think if you just have a little bit of an elevated thing, I think that goes a long way.
So you'll appreciate this then. Our first project, right? You know that we've lived in a 130-year-old Victorian for the last 16 years. Our first project when we were on a very, very limited budget was the powder room, right?
Yeah,
Small,
easy.
concise. And all we really did was there was a terrible tile floor.
Mm-hmm.
We had a sneaky suspicion as a 130-year-old house that there was hardwood under there. So we chipped it up thinking that we were going to put a tile down, but hoping that there was hardwood. And sure enough, there was hardwood down there. So we had the hardwood refinished. We put on a very inexpensive wainscoting. And we
Ooh.
actually put the same toilet and the same pedestal sink back in because it had been changed at some point in
Yeah.
time and totally redone. Totally
there.
redone. And on a very, very small budget.
Love that.
Yeah. Okay. Where are we at now? Oh, this is a good one, right? This is definitely a good one. We're planning on buying a new home in 2023.
Yeah.
What should we be doing right now?
Well, the big thing is start planning. So again, like the biggest thing is planning. We can strategize with you on what to do, how to like go about it. also getting like pre-approved I think is always like the best thing. Just start talking your numbers. The thing that it goes with planning is if we get you pre-approved, a lot of the times, most of our lenders that we work with will improve your credit score. They'll like strategize with you. They'll be like, hey, like pay off this debt, or hey, like if you do
So
change
mortgage
something,
strategy.
mortgage strategy. And obviously, like if you have a better credit score, the lower your interest rate is going to be. And with
Very
a
true.
high interest rate like market, that is gonna make a huge difference.
But so what about the people that are afraid? Like, oh my God, I don't want to talk to a lender because I don't want them to pull my credit because my credit's going to go down because the lender pulls it.
Well, luckily, it is gonna be a hard credit pull,
Yep.
which is fine. But if you're doing it with mortgages, it doesn't affect it.
It's not like going out and getting a new car or
Yeah.
credit card or anything like that.
I mean, like when you look at credit scores anyway, there's the 5 things that go into it, and hard inquiries is like 5% of your actual
smaller
credit
piece.
score. It's such a small piece that it doesn't make a difference. But also, if we're strategizing so far in advance, like we can actually make it up.
So in theory, and that's a great point because I think a lot of people don't understand that, is that if a lender pulls the credit right now and takes a look at it, they can actually, part of their job, right, as advisors,
Is helping you.
is to help put you in the best position possible.
Yeah.
And just like us, if we're doing that in real time when it's happening, yeah, we can do it. But if you can give us a little bit of lead time,
Totally.
we can strategize better.
Yeah.
I mean, you even said it to me the other day, is that half of the people that you're working with right now came to you to say, hey, I'm thinking about buying next year. When you talked about everything that we've been talking about, they all of a sudden
They're all
said,
now like, all right, well, let's sublease.
look.
Yeah, let's start now. Like, let's sublease. Like, we can have flexibility, which
Yeah.
is sometimes the nice thing as well.
and that whole planning, so that possibly we can put people in a better financial situation to be buying, right? Which is going to be important in the new year. We can strategize to help them really take most advantage of what's happening in the marketplace for them. So, I think just those discussions, right? Initial
Yeah.
discussions. What about finding?
Also, like if you're looking for a product that isn't readily available all the time, sometimes it'll come up before you're even ready to look.
Very
And
true.
so we just want to make sure that you're in position that, yes, if that does come up, we can
So-
say, hey,
Well, I think the other things that we have to hit on, right? We're just kind of naturally assuming that we're talking about our clients here and our clients are going to call us up and say this. I think the other things that are really important to note, first and foremost, find an agent that you have confidence in, right? The majority of our clients come to us from referrals, and thank you to all of our clients for constantly singing our praises at the rooftops. We're making that assumption. But for people that are watching this that either aren't in the Chicagoland area, hey, we're still happy to help find people elsewhere. We've got connections all over. For those people, we need to kind of understand finding an agent that you have confidence in.
So I mean, like going back to a personal story for you,
Yeah.
you're interviewing agents in Montana.
Totally.
And so, and you had the funniest story the other day, which I would love for you to share it with people because I think it's so interesting being on our side.
It's very true. Is that we've been interviewing agents on we're selling a property in Montana.
Yep.
We had worked with an agent before that we liked a lot about it, but once again, it's just keeping everything sharp, right? And I tell all of my clients, even if you want to talk to another agent just to make sure the fit is good now, I'm happy for that, right? I'm confident in what I have. I want the people that work with us to be really confident in that too. So we were talking to a couple of agents. This is a transaction with my father-in-law, so he was kind of driving the conversation. We talked to this one agent and just had a terrible experience. Like, it was really good for me to see as a consumer.
Totally.
Because
I
it was
could
one of
only
those things
imagine.
that somebody kind of showed up for the Zoom call, felt very unprepared, felt very unknowledgeable on the market, and I literally walked away with that going, thinking to myself that so many people actually, and my father-in-law was the perfect example. He's the type of guy that doesn't want to hurt somebody's feelings. So he's the type of person that would say, hey, let's work with him.
Yeah.
Let's work with him. Where I walked out of that and said, I don't feel comfortable in that. I don't feel like trusting the sale of this major asset to somebody that I didn't have confidence in. So what did we do? We went on and we talked to some more agents. We talked to obviously our original agent. And once again, we're right back with our original agent because that's the place that we should be. Yeah. And that's the place that we had confidence in the first time and we had confidence in the second time. But it was one of those things that I think a lot of people, don't.
There's friendly and then we have a strategy.
Exactly.
We have a proven strategy. This is exactly what we do. Step by step, we're going to get you through this process. And a lot of that is the planning part of it.
Totally. And we even tell some of our clients sometimes is that we would love the opportunity, but absolutely feel free to talk to somebody else. feel okay to have that conversation. We're really comfortable in what we do and how we do it. We want to make sure our clients are comfortable with that as well.
Yep.
And yeah, so I think it's just that whole idea of taking active steps. There's just no such thing as too early, right? We can absolutely, I have clients that come to me that are literally going to buy probably Q3 next year. I'd rather talk to them in the next two, 3 months. To strategize than not.
Yep.
Even if it's a 15 to 20 minute, I know things are busy right now, right? We're going to get into the holiday jam, but I'd rather have a 20-minute call just to say, hey, this is what we're thinking, this is what we're expecting, this is the conversations I want you to have. That just puts us all in a better position.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. I think that was the last one.
That was the end of our questions. I mean, the one thing that I just wanted to touch on again, right? Some of this stuff gets repetitive, but it's important, right? The majority of our clients are buying residential homes, right? We absolutely have investors and we have home buyers that want to be making good investments, but the majority of our clients are buying homes. And as we sit here and we talk about what's happening in the market and inflation and interest rates and costs and appreciation and all these things.
That's an aspect of it.
Yes.
That's an aspect of purchasing a home. That's an aspect of living in it. But at the end of the day, it does come back to the emotional part. You're living there.
It's your home.
It's not like a stock. You're just, hey, it's strictly financial. There are other aspects that go into it.
Well, and it's the question that we ask so many of our clients is that what is your biggest priority in this purchase?
Totally.
The majority, not all, the majority of our clients are going to come back to us and say, first and foremost, my biggest priority is that this is the home that I am going to live in. That's the biggest priority. The secondary priority is that I want to make a good financial decision.
Totally.
So I think we always need to come back to that reminder is that this is a home purchase for most of our clients. And not to diminish the craziness of what's going on out there, but sometimes we even get a little caught in the minutia of what's going on out there versus kind of coming back to saying, hey, is this a home that's really going to help you accomplish your familial, your life, your goals, right?
Yeah. And that's why we say, like, even right now, it's everybody needs to move.
Right.
So, somebody's going to have to move at some point. Like, and, you know, whether the market's up, whether the market's down, somebody's always going to need housing.
Totally. And that's why we're employed. Right? We stay in business regardless of what's happening in the market, right? If you look at our number of transactions, the volume we do year over year, it doesn't change too much what's going on in the market, right? We have tracked very similar numbers with some growth over the past couple of decades.
Yeah.
And that's because regardless of what's happening, people always need homes. That doesn't ever go out of style. You always need a place to go to at the end of the day and a bed to put your pillow on and to go to sleep at night.
Yes.
So,
nice.
Anyways, it's been fun.
It has been fun.
And a reminder just to send in questions for next time.
Yeah, because we want to answer your questions. I mean, and it doesn't always have to be about the market. It can be like some fun things. Like if you want to hear like our worst real estate stories, I don't know, just fun things out there.
Absolutely, for certain. Until next time, Chicago.
Until next time, Chicago.